So the great philosopher and psychologist Frederick Nietzsche said, "God is dead, and we have killed him." And those were some of his last sane words before he devolved into muttering madness. And Frederick Nietzsche always had a special place in my heart. And I really think he did God's will to an extent, but I don't think he had God with him so much. Maybe he was a believer, maybe he wasn't, I'm not quite sure, but he was definitely a great psychologist, and he definitely did God's will at the end of the day. What made him snap was the story of the Turin horse. If you don't know the story of the Turin horse, look it up. It was his empathy for this horse. And one of God's great creatures. St. Francis of Assisi loved all of God's creatures and nature as well. But the thing is this, is that a lot of people today with mental health, Frederick Nietzsche, who is a really highly respected psychologist and philosopher as well, he said, "God is dead and we have killed him." I believe he was right. A lot today with mental health issues, people think that they are just their diagnosis, whether you're psychotic or bipolar, which is what they called me for a long time. We exhibit a lot of symptoms, and something I learned in therapy is that we are more than our diagnosis. We exhibit symptoms, but a lot of those symptoms are actually stem from traumatic experiences. Some people need to take meds, and me, even though I've had a lot of traumatic experiences, I think I can defeat this bipolar. I think I need to take these meds for a while, and I think these meds are good. But the thing is, those bipolar meds that I was taking for a while, I'm now taking anti-anxiety and mood disorder and for anxiety. I also realized changing my diet helped a whole lot with my mental health. Straying away from carbs, which gave me too much energy, which led to my anxiety. Too much sugar, which increased my anxiety, and coffee, which increased my anxiety as well. I still have a problem with cigarettes, but I like to think sometimes that they help with my anxiety, but I know that's fake and that's not true. But it's just a nervous tick at this point, which I need to get over. I'm trying to start wearing nicotine patches. But the thing is that we're more than our diagnosis, and people are starting to recognize that and understand that. And I'm glad people are finally understanding, because this is the excuse. The shape of our brains look different. The way our brains register on a CT scan look different. This is kind of the same logic that they used against black people way back in the day. This might sound very racist, but let me just pretend to be like a character from Django. "Oh, look at the size of this nigger's skull. See the indent in his forehead. This is why they are subservient to white owners. Blah, 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 blah." They're doing the same thing all over to us again, saying, "See the CT scan. This is how your brain functions. This is just who you are. This is how your brain is functioning right now. Look at this extrusion to the pituitary, slight extrusion, the widening of the nasal cavities." They're doing the same thing to us again, and it's fucked up. But you can't help but laugh, because some people fall for it. Most people fall for it. I know without the grace of God, I would have fallen for it, and I would have been driven mad. Anyways, God has saved my life more times than I can count at this point. Five huge times He has saved my life, actually. Maybe, definitely, certainly more than that. But I just want to say that we are more than our diagnosis is, and you can overcome it. There's a path towards overcoming it, and sometimes we need meds towards overcoming it. Sometimes we need meds the entire life. Sometimes we just need meds for a little bit. But the thing is, when I was on these bipolar meds, it made me gain 30 pounds in a month. It made me feel like a truck hit me when I woke up in the mornings. I felt like I was blowing up like a balloon animal, and I was sick. And guess what? The doctor changed my meds when I told him it wasn't working. If your meds aren't working for you, go to your doctor and say, "Hey, these meds aren't working for me. Can we do something else? These are my symptoms. These are why they're not working." And if you have a good doctor, they'll change it. If you give a doctor who doesn't give a crap about how you feel or how you think, then it's time to find a new doctor. I understand a lot of people don't have access to really good health care. And I've been blessed because I come from a middle-class family. My dad makes like 100K a year, and my mom makes like 50K a year. But I still don't have a penny to my name, and that's okay because I have people who support me, and without them I would be on the streets, or worse by now. So I just thank God every day that He gave me what He gave me. But yeah, if you're going through a tough spot right now, I definitely suggest praying to God. You know, I can't make anybody, and I don't think it's good to make anybody or guilt trip anybody into not praying, or guilt trip anybody into praying, is what I meant to say. It took me a long time on God's own terms to help me come back to Him, and He showed me the way. I was riddled with anxiety and guilt and depression and anger and fear, mostly fear, and He has since wiped all that away. And of course I'll still exhibit anxiety and fear and depression from time to time, as does everybody. But He's made it manageable for me now. And I think that's what Frederick Nietzsche said. God is dead, and we have killed Him. We need to go back to our roots. The roots of psychology, the roots of our religions, and the roots of our hearts. Because that is what Sigmund Freud did as well. He didn't have a whole bunch of fancy medications. He had people sit on a casting couch, basically, which sounds fucked up, but hey, it's kind of a funny joke because we all know about Freud and how he had these sexual concepts that he dealt with. But the thing is, he was more of a philosopher than a psychologist at that point. Sure, they called it psychology, but it stemmed from philosophy. And philosophy has stemmed from religion, actually. Religion led to philosophy, philosophy led to psychology, and all these things are very good. But they're tools, and they can all be misused. The Crusades and attempting to retake Jerusalem, which would stem from religion. Philosophy has been skewed. Psychology can become skewed. And I'm a believer in science, but I also believe there's a correct way to use it and a wrong way to use it. So we got to be careful. We got to make sure that if we do use these powers and these responsibilities, that we use them wisely and we use them safely. And we can't just use them for ourselves, we have to use them for the benefit of others. And if we stay silent and don't say anything and don't try and help people, that will be on us, because I think there was a saying in the Bible, or a message in the Bible, where it goes, the story of the man with the talents, or the man with the golden coins. A guy, I think God is in this parable, he gave these people talents, he gave them golden coins. And talents was a form of currency back in the day. Now we call them as traits which we are good at. Traits which help us excel in life. But talents should be used for others. And the thing is that, and then the story, some people invested a lot of coins and came back with some coins in return to God. And some came back with little coins, some came back with a whole lot of coins. But at the end of the day, they all followed His will, and they all invested their coins and their talents, except for one man who said, I know you don't like it when I mess with your coins. So I buried them and I hid them so that they wouldn't get stolen or wasted. I have brought them back to you. And God says in this parable, He says, you evil and wicked servant, you have not used the gifts that I have given you. Now you should go to the streets where there will be gnashing and clacking of teeth, or something like that. Or something, you're going to go to hell, basically, if you don't use the gifts I give you for good. Essentially, I think was what he was saying. Or he just simply kicked them to the streets, maybe, in order to help them understand His will. Because sometimes God kicks us to the curb if we listen, but we don't hear, and we don't see, and we don't accept. And sometimes it's impossible for us to accept, because some things only come by grace, and some things only God can give us. It's impossible for us to have faith if we just hear these stories. We got to ask God for faith. We got to ask Him for humbleness. We got to ask Him for purity and love and chastity and all these things. Some things are just too much for us. And I think this is why Alcoholics Anonymous almost solely focuses on God. I mean, Alcoholics Anonymous has focused on God for a long time. But aside from praying for God, we have to do good deeds as well. We have to help people who smoke get nicotine patches. We have to help people who are alcoholics get the rehab and the care they need. And we have to give them, I think there's even medications you can take now, which, or some kind of pills you can take that curbs the crave for alcohol. Now that's really, I don't know if they work or not. I've never taken them. I'm not an alcoholic, but if they work, they work. I don't know. Do whatever you can, but you got to help these people out sometimes, and it's our job to do so. It's our obligation. You know, it's like the saying from Spider-Man: with great power comes great responsibility, and we got to be responsible now.